because it is said that most postmoderns would love, to dance, so they don't care about the basic. If we could take some problems, what are
for the talents, maybe, that's a good question. Definitely. So maybe it's a question that most of the teams usually have.
Welcome to another episode of Energ-Aid. I am your host, Adela Chokoto. Today, we will be talking about forgiveness, and not just any kind of forgiveness, but we'll be talking about forgiveness amongst our friends, man to man. Here in studio to help me today is Benson Nkhoma, and he will help us understand what forgiveness is all about and what it involves, and basically just explain this whole topic of forgiveness. But before we begin, I went to Lilongwe Nazarene Secondary School, and this is what they had to say about forgiveness.
I'm Judith Nkandere and I'm 14 years old.
Judith, how easy is it to forgive?
Forgive a person is normal. Yeah, it's normal to forgive a person.
Do you think it's possible to forgive and forget?
Yeah, it's possible to forgive and forget. Yeah.
How?
When you forgive someone, that's the best gift ever. And just forgive and forget. Because it's the best gift ever. If you have something in your heart for someone, it's big hatred. And forgive, it's a good thing. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Judith.
Welcome.
My name is Energ-Aid and I'm 14 years old.
Okay, Henry, what does it mean to forgive?
Yeah, to tell the truth, I don't exactly know.
Okay. Do you think it's easy to forgive?
No, it's not easy to forgive.
Why?
Because you actually think of what that person has actually done to you, and it can't be easy to just allow him to go free for what he has done to you. So I can say it's not easy.
Thank you very much, Henry.
Yeah, thank you too.
My name is Chisomo Jomba and I'm 16 years old.
How easy would it be to trust him or her again, even after they've apologized?
First of all, it could be difficult for me, but since it was written that forgiveness is there and it's nature, I can forgive her. Yeah, and I think the relationship can be there, but not the way we were used at the past.
My name is Douglas Chimangen. I'm 17 years old.
Okay, Douglas, what does it mean to forgive?
To forgive it is when one leaves everything that someone did wrong to him or her and forgets it, and they start doing something which is afresh, which is new.
So is it possible to forgive and forget?
Yes, it is possible.
How can one forgive and forget?
One can easily forgive another person by forgetting everything what that person did to him or her and starting afresh.
My name is Praise Chu and I'm 15 years old.
Okay, let's assume your closest friend reveals your deepest secret to someone you don't like at all. How easy would it be to trust him or her again, even after they've apologized?
Actually, it would be hard to forgive and trust because it's my best friend, and to forgive, it would be like taking back, and the trusting and forgiving would be like taking back a mistake, so it would be hard to trust again.
So how easy is it to forgive someone?
It's not that easy. It's hard. You can forgive, but you can't forget. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Precious Gomiwa and I'm 16 years old.
Okay, what does it mean to forgive?
To forgive is to forget about the past and never keep something for someone. Yeah, that is what I know.
So that's what teens at Nazarene Secondary School had to say about forgiveness. And I remember one of them said that forgiveness is not something easy to do. But before we get there, let's just talk to Mr. Benson and see what he thinks about forgiveness. Welcome, Benson. Now, in your own words, how would you define forgiveness?
Thank you very much, Adela, for bringing this very important topic about forgiveness. In my understanding and the simplified way, of forgiveness is that to let it go the wrong things that others have done against someone else. That's the way I understand it.
Thank you.
Yes.
And so basically, forgiving someone is just letting go of what maybe they've done to you or said to you. Do you have an example, a testimony, or scenario that you can give?
Yeah, in terms of forgiveness, the topic of forgiveness, it involves two people or two entities, one the offender and one the offended. So in this particular case, we are talking more about the offended one.
Yes.
He's the one who is supposed to express the idea or to let it go, something that something wrong which has happened to him or to her. I'll give you an example in my case.
Yes.
As a family, we wanted to sell a vehicle so that once we sell it, we can also buy another one. So someone took our vehicle and gave us a post-dated check. That was 2011. Now, when the time came to now cash the money, we were called by the person and said, no, there's no money at the bank. Please wait for us for a while up until I deposit the money in the bank. So we waited for him, we gave him some time, but that waiting culminated into a year. And our hearts, our plans that we had, that when we sell this vehicle, we're going to use it for something else, what we wanted to do, or to buy another vehicle. So up until 2 years, we tried to talk to the person, to plead with the person. It was so hard, so painful, because it went against our plans. But over and over again, we reminded him, up until at a time, the idea of forgiveness came in to say, let it go, and maybe start all over again, and to look for other avenues, how we can get the resources and do what we wanted to do. And that's exactly what we did. We forgave the person, and we managed to get some resources, and we did what we wanted to do, because he wronged us, because he cheated us by taking our vehicle, promising to pay, giving us a post-dated check with a view that we are going to cash when time is due. But it never happened like that. So it was so painful, it was so wrong to us, but over time we said, let it go and let's move on and do something else.
But how easy was it to just let it go? How long did it take? Because you did mention that it was painful, going through that experience. How long did it take?
Yes, Adela, it's not easy to forgive someone. And as I said it, when you're doing some things, like in our case, we had plans that when we collect the resources from the sold vehicle, we will do ABCD. And in this case, as I said, we wanted to buy a better car so that, our movement could be improved. But because we could not do that, it was so hard for our family that we had a car and it's like we lost it by someone taking us from us without paying us. So it was so hard, it was so painful, it actually distorted our plans and everything else. But looking at the time it took and the promises we have had from this person, it was so painful from our side, it distorted our peace. But over and over again, when we learned about forgiveness, we recalled what it means. We said, let it go for the sake of our peace and for the sake of our happiness. Let it go and we move on. Yes.
Now, before we continue, you reminded me of a certain story that I read. If I'm not mistaken, there was a woman in the US a while ago, some years ago. She adopted a baby. The baby, at about 18 months when she adopted him, the baby had already been beaten, and he had been put in an oven. He had been whipped by his own biological father. And this woman, so caring, and I find the woman very bold and very strong to adopt such a baby. and he had been beaten to the point that his brain wasn't functioning well, so his growing process kind of slowed down because of all the beatings. But she still took him into the home, and yes, she wrote that it was very challenging for her to bring up such a child, especially when the child started going to school to find friends. The child went through so much. But when he was 8 years old, this is where the story ended, and I found this very, very touching. In the end, when he was 8 years old, he asked the mother, "Mom, where is my father?" And this was the biological father. "Do you know where he is?" And the mother answered, "Yes, I know where he is. Why do you ask?" And she thought that maybe he wanted to revenge or get back at the father for what he's done to him. But surprisingly, the child says, "Because I want to tell him that I'm okay." And I found that was amazing for such a young child. I mean, he would have grown up properly if, he wouldn't have had all these problems. He would have been fine, and he wouldn't have gone through all those, all the teasings and stuff from friends, and he would have been fine. But the fact that he got to the point where he forgave his father for doing such a thing was, I found that amazing, and I just felt obliged to share this story.
I think that's encouraging. I mean, that's an amazing story, really. Exactly.
And we find that there are a lot of these cases as well in Malawi these days, children being abused in homes. And of course, it's not really put out in the public, but you hear stories of these things. What would you say to maybe a child whose parents or maybe whose boyfriend or girlfriend is abusing them, or just what would you say to them?
Thank you very much. Coming from the story, I think it's encouraging. If I recall what Shakespeare said, a thing done can never be undone. So what it means, what was done before, you cannot change it, you cannot erase it, you cannot do anything anything on it. So a thing done can never be undone. So in this case, like the story I've shared, even if the child would have done anything, wouldn't have changed what was before. Because that was done and he would want change. Likewise, in the case you have asked to say, for those children that maybe their parents they have abandoned them, and they have not been caring to them, and they have grown up and they still feel bitter about their parents. That bitterness can only be taken out by forgiveness, because they cannot change the past. The past, how the parent abused them, how the parents did not take care of them, that they cannot change it. But they need now to concentrate and look forward. Now, how do they bring in their happiness and also have a better future? The most important aspect in life is to forgive. So I may advise such children, or I may advise people that have wronged each other, particularly the offended, need to forgive and move on. Actually, you've reminded me something that I wanted also to say before I forget. One secret of happiness in this world is to live a forgiveness life, to forgive others, because we are living in a world where, in one way or the other, you're offended. You may offend others, but what comes to you as offended, you have your own control. You can forgive and move on. So one secret of living a happy life, a brighter future, is to live a forgiving life.
And you've heard of the quote, "Forgive and forget."
Yes.
What's your take on that?
That's hard. That's hard. I think forgiveness is one aspect. Forgetting is another.
Yes.
It may happen you can forgive and forget. Like in my case, That's what even my wife says. I've got a very short memory of things. I can do something and forget and move on. So it's easier for me to forgive and forget. But it's not the case. It's not the case for all people. You can forget, you can forgive, but you cannot forget. Now, the problem of not forgetting is when that other offender offends you again. If you bring it back, if you recall it and bring it back to your memory, you are bound to refer to the previous offense and say, you did this before, you did this before. But we are encouraged to forgive, and not only forgive, but also forget. But the aspect of forgetting is the one that is very a challenge to many people.
But it is possible to forget.
Exactly, it is possible. It is possible.
Okay, I'll ask this question again.
Yes.
After this story. I hope I don't get shouted at for bringing it out like this.
Okay.
My mom told me that when she was younger, her and her sister, I think they were playing or something. She says there was no electricity at home.
Okay.
And so they were cooking in sima outside on the charcoal burner. So I'm not quite sure what happened, but the sister ended up falling on the charcoal burner.
Sure.
So she got burnt, and she still has that scar. And we were talking about forgiveness one day, my mom and I, and she said that it is possible to forgive and forget, but not forgetting doesn't mean that you haven't forgiven. Because taking her scenario, if anyone asks, what happened, she would still have to explain and recall on this scenario, but that doesn't mean that she hasn't forgiven.
Exactly. Yeah.
So in that case, what would you say?
Yeah, I think like in this case where you have a scar, and the scar will always remind you what happened before. And in that case, the aspect of forgiveness would be there, but in terms of forgetting, the aspect of forgetting the scenario may still be there because of the scar, but you can still forget in terms of how painful it was, because that's the aspect that you can concentrate on how forgiveness together with forgiving that forgetting that aspect, because when you are offended, you feel bitterness and you feel angry, and that's the aspect we're saying you need to forget about it. The other people that when they recall what happened before, they can not, they feel nausea, and
they feel like they're going through it again.
Exactly, and they lose appetite as if it has just happened. Now, that's the aspect we're saying. Someone has to endeavor to forget. You can still remember what happened, just like in this case, you can still see a scar or something has happened, something happened, but you can still forget the pain and the bitterness. What happened? I can tell you one thing about when you're offended. One thing that comes in your mind when you're offended is to revenge.
Yes.
That's a natural response. When you're offended, the first thing you would think of is to revenge. You are bitter. You want, and the level of revenging, you would want it to be more than what the offense was to you. So that's the aspect of forgiveness, and also forgetting about the bitterness and the anger. Being angry of what happened to you. That's the aspect we're saying. You need to forget. Exactly.
Thank you very much. Some people may be asking, why is it so important to forgive? If you may be sitting there like, okay, yes, we get it, forgiveness, blah, blah, blah. But why is it so important?
I will speak from two aspects. From the person that has been offended, it is important to forgive and also to forget, because it restores your peace and your happiness. That's very key. You can forget about bitterness and whether you're angry. It also helps you health-wise, because when you're angry, so many things happen in your body, and that is the goodness, the beauty about forgetting or forgiving and forgetting. Now, the other aspect, I'll tell it from the Christian perspective.
Yes, yes.
You know, our God, the God we worship, He is expecting or He is asking us to forgive others. And if you don't forgive, what the Bible says, we cannot be forgiven by God. And
Yeah,
that's what the Bible says. If I don't know if I can quote from Matthew chapter 6, verse 12.
Yes, yes.
In the Lord's Prayer, there is that aspect. Forgive us our debtors as we forgive. So there are two aspects. Health-wise and your happiness and everything, but also for us to be forgiven by God, we need also to forgive others.
And earlier you mentioned that when we forgive others, we gain an inner peace. So I just wanted to mention some parts, what unforgiveness does and what it's all about. So I know that unforgiveness, when you don't forgive, you don't have peace. And I also know that when, this aspect of unforgiveness comes from the evil one, because there's no reason for us not to forgive. I think if Christ was able to forgive us for all the wrongs that we've done, all the wrongs that we're doing and are still yet to do, I think that should be enough for us to, keep in and just to remind ourselves that we should forgive others. If He could do it, then why can't we?
Exactly. Actually, Christ forgave us, even for us who were not there when they were piercing Him. But the most interesting part, which I think all of us should emulate, is when Jesus was crucified on the cross. You remember that story?
Yes, yes.
He said, "Forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing." There are some other people that they can do something wrong to you. To them, their conscience will be clear, and they may not be concerned about it. You want to be offended and feeling bitter about it, and for them,
they've even forgotten.
Everything. And you have this burden, and, so it is important for forgive, because even if someone has not come to you to say, "Please forgive me," it is important as a person to live a forgiving life, just like Christ as we have put it. And if Jesus forgave the people that were even piercing Him, spitting on Him and doing everything, and yet He said, "Father, please forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing." Exactly.
And I guess that's something that we can all say as well, that whenever we feel bad, we can just say, "Father, just forgive them. Help me to forgive them." And I don't think there's any crime in asking God to forgive someone. There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
So we can always pray, "Father, forgive them.
Exactly.
They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're saying."
Yeah.
So that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. I think if I may repeat what I said earlier, I want to say, I think one aspect of living a happy life is living forgiving others. It's a very important aspect. As we've also said just now, there are others that can offend you and they don't care. And you want to remain with a burden, and your life will not be enjoyable. So we need to forgive others, even if they have not come back to you and say sorry about it. You need to forgive and forget.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Adela.
Now let's listen to a song done by the Prophets entitled "Rainbow of Love."
Shining every day, all along the way, there's a rainbow of love, perfect love, on the land and sea, shines for you and me. There's a rainbow of love, perfect love, a rainbow shining with golden lining. It's always pointing to heaven above. The clouds are gathered in stormy weather. There's a rainbow. There's a rainbow of love, perfect love. When we cross that tide, on the other side, there's a rainbow. There's a rainbow of love, perfect love, shining on and on the great white throne. There's a rainbow. There's a rainbow of love, perfect love. There's a rainbow shining with golden lining. It's always pointing to heaven above. The clouds are gathered in stormy weather. There's a rainbow. There's a rainbow of love, perfect love. There's a rainbow shining with golden lining. It's always pointing to heaven above. The clouds are gathered in stormy weather. There's a rainbow. There's a rainbow of love, perfect love. There's a rainbow shining with golden lining. It's always pointing to heaven above. The clouds are gathered in stormy weather. There's a rainbow. There's a rainbow of love.
That was a beautiful item of music done by the Prophets entitled Rainbow of Love. Now I'd just like to share with you some reasons why forgiveness matters. The first reason is that unforgiveness only hurts you. Just like Benson mentioned, that there's some people that, when you don't forgive them, they've forgotten already, and sometimes they don't even know that they hurt you. So if you're just keeping all these burdens in, all this unforgiveness, you're only hurting yourself. And the second reason why we need to forgive is that unforgiveness will often hurt others. This is mostly common in families. Let's take a scenario where there are two families where maybe they had some kind of argument or a quarrel, some kind of dispute between them. You find that just because of this small issue that happened between these two families, you'll find that as generations pass, this unforgiveness is then passed on to the children, and then you'll find that, that child is a child of whose, so I'm not going to talk to them. So this is what unforgiveness does as well. And Gandhi once said, I love this quote, if everyone were to follow the eye for an eye principle of justice, the whole world would go blind. And I think that's very true. If all of us were to, revenge just because someone did something wrong to us, then the whole world would be blind. Then everyone would just hate each other. So it's important that we learn to forgive. The third reason is unforgiveness may deny healing to another. The fourth, it says, it affects your relationship with God. When you don't forgive others, then maybe you might start asking and questioning God, why did this happen? Why didn't this happen? If you really love me, why didn't you maybe intervene? Why didn't you come through for me? That sort of thing. So it also interferes with your relationship with God. And the fifth one says, like I mentioned earlier, unforgiveness is exploited by the evil one. The Bible even says that all evil things come from the evil one. And unforgiveness is for sure evil. And then the sixth one is, forgiveness towards others shows our own experience of God's forgiveness. Now it's time for our inspirational quotes. The first quote comes from Ephesians 4 verse 32, and it says, be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you. The second quote comes from Mark 11, verse 25, and it says, "And whenever you stand praying, forgive, if you have anything against anyone, so that your Father also who is in heaven may forgive your trespasses." So I hope that this program has blessed you, and I hope that you will learn to forgive. You're with me, your host, Adela Chokoto, right here on Hope Channel Malawi with your program Energ-Aid. Remember, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you.